Do you believe a mass contact is imminent or about to take place?
They've kind of been given a deadline. If you don't roll it out to your people, we're just going to show up.
Why are galactic beings so interested in us?
Because what we do here actually impacts the entire universe. And they call Earth the planet of emotion. So if you want to go somewhere in the universe and learn about emotion, you come here. But because we have these emotions that are so very extreme, that we have really dark and heavy emotional experiences, and then we have really light ones, it also allows us to tap into the frequency of compassion in a way that is very unique to the universe.
Would you mind then channeling the P's or doing language of light channeling now?
Yes, hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you.
Are there beings living inside of the Earth?
Yes, many species on your planet. So do not underestimate yourselves. Honor yourselves, honor your light. We are around, we are watching, we are waiting, and we are sending many, many well wishes.
When do you believe we are going to see you, all of us, as the collective in physical form?
It's quite possible in 2026. The change that's about to unfold on your planet in the next 30, 35 years is...
Are you ready to shine? Shine bright. Woohoo! Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt we're hearing more and more about extraterrestrials and wondered, what does it all mean? Or when are they coming? Then do we have the Wendy Kennedy Show for you. Today I'll be talking with Wendy Kennedy, who's channeled Galactic Beings and Pleiadians for over 25 years. I want to talk with her about a galactic presence, how they're influencing humanity, when full contact may take place, and light activation for humanity today. So welcome to the show, Wendy. Are you ready to shine?
Yes. Hello. Thank you so much for having me here.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and a mighty woohoo! So before we dive right into things, and this is jumping way ahead of the conversation, but do you believe a mass contact is imminent or about to take place?
I think it's probably a couple years away for the collective. I think on an individual level, yes, you can start having more and more contact, but at the collective level, I think we're still a couple of years away for that.
And I'm going to call that imminent because a couple years in the history of, well, actually his story, because we can go back and look at Indian text, Sanskrit texts, and see that we may already have been contacted. But why are galactic beings so interested in us?
Because what we do here actually impacts the entire universe. And, Earth is a very special place. The guides describe it as being a grand experiment where we were given genetic material from thousands of worlds. And with this genetic connection, as we go through our ascension process, because we're holographic in nature, what happens here within us also happens within those that are connected with our genetic line, as well as those aspects of ourselves that are currently having a lifetime, say 3,000 years in the past or 3,000 years in the future. That information is transmitted, and it has the ability to create tremendous change throughout the entire universe.
Sounds cool. Actually, it sounds beyond cool. Do you know any of the fundamentals of how that took place, that our DNA, that we're, for lack of another term, star children?
So the guides say that there are 5 seed races that donated the core material for us. And then, the rest of the life on the planet comes from thousands of worlds. And there are 7 major star systems where that energy and where that DNA comes from. So that's Arcturus, Sirius, Orion, Cassiopeia, Lyra, Pleiades, and I'm leaving one out. I'm not sure what I went through.
It's pretty good off the top of your head.
So we are playing out these same archetypal programs, and the idea was to see if we could come into density forget who and what we truly are, because it's so different from our natural way of being. It was a way to explore in a new and unique way. And so as we entered into density, we thought, well, can we go down, remember who we are, and kind of come back up? And so that's the game that we're in right now. And other systems have gone through this process, but they didn't necessarily have all of the pieces to work with that we have. So if you think about working with Legos and you've got 100 Legos, what can you build with 100 Legos? What can you do with 100,000? So that's kind of how the guides describe it, is that we have so many different subtle nuances to play with and explore because of this genetic material that we've been granted access to, that it makes it a far more interesting experience to kind of go down into the descension process and come back out. And so it was designed, it was set up, and this is the third grand experiment. There were 2 other experiments that failed, that didn't go well, but they say we're on track. It's kind of a fait accompli. It's a done deal in a sense. And we're just kind of finding our way through it and choosing, honestly, at the consciousness level, which version of reality that we're going to be standing on as we go through it. Because that's a whole nother conversation we can have about time and timelines.
We may have to go there. So I was just going back in time. There's that Matrix series that we're all familiar with. And I guess it's hit the 25th year anniversary. Sorry, I'm looking at my clock right now. And it says Thursday, April 11th. And then it said briefly 1111, which is interesting because now it just said 1115. But I got 6 ones on the screen at the same time. And that means we are exactly where we're supposed to be right here, right now. You mentioned, and I'm flashing back to that movie for a brief second, because in that movie, humanity had been injected into this simulation multiple times and failed. And then was at this regenerative point where maybe humanity was going to go through. Do you know, or have you been given information why it didn't work out before, but why it looks like it's going to work out this time?
In some ways, because of all of the variation that we have. So we have a huge range of emotion that some of these other experiments didn't have. And they call Earth the planet of emotion. So if you want to go somewhere in the universe and learn about emotion, you come here. They describe
goody.
others. Yeah, right. Some days we're thinking, why did I choose this? But the guides are very adamant that we got the golden ticket, that as a soul, we really wanted to come, and this is very special. So there are other systems that really don't have the range of emotions that we have, and that's kind of hard for us to really wrap our mind around, because it's just the way that we are. It's the way that we're built. But if you only had 5 or 6 emotions, there wasn't a huge range, because it may be that that's what that civilization or that planet wanted to focus on. That was their blueprint. Cassiopeia is kind of that way. They explore creativity and love and beauty. So their range isn't quite the same as what we have here, but it seems very foreign. And sometimes it's hard for us to kind of wrap our brain around that. But because we have these emotions that are so very extreme, that we have really dark and heavy emotional experiences, and then we have really light ones, it also allows us to tap into the frequency of compassion in a way that is very unique to the universe. And that actually is what the guides say is our gift to the universe. As we go through this ascension process and we tap into more compassion, it emanates through the entire universe and allows species who maybe were having a difficult time because they were very focused on their intellect, they weren't in touch with their emotions. It helps them to heal and to kind of come back to a more balanced position within the universal structure. So that's why, in part, that this one works.
As I've been talking to you, I'm channeling, communicating as well. And I've been having this conversation of, what are we, like a plaything? Are we like a play toy? Why did they put us over here? Why did they create us? And what I heard is, we're the baby. The baby burst forth greater compassion, greater empathy, greater understanding, greater everything. And so we were created as kind of the baby of the universe, in a sense, to help raise everybody up. Does that sound right?
Yes, and they describe us as being right now we're learning how to be stewards of the planet, how to take care of
Thank
that as
you.
we grow. And then eventually they said as we go through this process in the future, we will be universal stewards. We will develop into that because of where we've started with this seed of compassion and also this we have a creative spark that not all species have the ability to access because we have so much of this genetic material, so much of the range of emotion. And that makes the ability for us to manifest and create in wondrous ways much more accessible. When we get out of the fear programs, we move into that heart-centered space, we can create some amazing things and manifest in ways that it's a little more challenging for other physical beings to do.
Thank you. I want to double back. You had mentioned time and timelines earlier and said maybe we will go there. What would you like to share about that, and how does that help us understand the current path or trajectory of humanity?
So I could spend hours talking about this because the guides really have spent a large chunk of time. I've been working with them for 29 years now, and their message hasn't really wavered. And what they're focused on right now is really empowerment, that we have the ability to create what we want. We have to choose in this moment what we want to create instead of reacting to what we're being sold as a possibility. And when we talk about time, time is a marker for a frequency. That's all it is. It's like the Dewey Decimal System in the library. It helps us to figure out where to go find that book. And it's the same thing with time. It helps us to find a specific frequency. So we don't really have timelines according to the guides. It's really a matter of us moving from frequency to frequency to frequency, now moment to now moment to
What does
now
that
moment.
mean? Okay,
So
gotcha.
if you can imagine a giant sphere, and
Mhm.
that's all possibility, all time, and every now moment that has been, ever will be, or is now, is on the surface of this giant sphere as tiny little dots. So we can move to one dot that is on this giant sphere that's on one side, which has a specific frequency. And our frequency, that dot, is based on the collective consciousness and our personal consciousness, our story. So we have the story that the collective is buying into, things like we had World War I, we had World War II, this event happened. And then our personal story that we choose to hold on to. Oh, when I was 12, this happened, or when I was 16, this happened. And, our stories that we tell ourselves, they're not always accurate. We take versions of the events and then we replay them. So that creates a base frequency that we generate our reality from, plus the energy then that we are projecting out that we want to manifest. So we can go from a frequency on one side and then shift our energy completely to a frequency that is vastly different than the one that we were standing on in the previous moment. It's just that we have bought into this reality so deeply and forgotten that we're divine beings of light that that's very challenging for us to do, to let go of those stories. When we do that, when we go from one side to another, a lot of times we'll call that a miracle. We'll see people who have gone into spontaneous remissions when they've not been well, or people who've had near-death experiences will radically alter their perspective of reality, and they can put themselves on a completely different now moment where the base frequency is very, very different. So what we will do to hold this consciousness in density and give us the illusion of linear time is to string all of those dots together and give us the
Yep.
illusion of time. But we're really kind of going from dot to dot to dot. So your version of a timeline could be vastly different than mine when you look at it from the time you were born until the time you transition. So yours could go all over, and there may be moments where that intersects, where we connect and we share that version of reality together as a collective, but you might go on to have a very different experience from there. And that's really hard for us to kind of wrap our brains around. And that's one thing that the guides want us to really understand, is that none of that is fixed. It's all based on the energy that you're holding in this moment. So, what you want to create as your future, be very present, be very aware of the frequencies that you want to generate, not so much the images. Because where we're going, we don't necessarily have the images for the new things that we want to create. And if we keep going to that old box, that old imagery, we're probably not going to move out of it. So they want us to focus on the essence, the vibrational essence of what it is that we want to manifest, and that will determine the future.
Thank you. So if I go to, I'm bring it back to more of a galactic outlook for today. If I go to the beings or star systems that help to create who we are today in the physical, we're divine beings having this masquerade of an experience, an important one, but this isn't all we are. However, if they're operating at a higher dimension, and maybe that's a poor assumption here, then what are they understanding about time and what can they see? Because if you're saying time is not fixed and it's not like everything's going to collapse into one timeline, do they already know what's coming for us, or is it impossible to know? And it gets really confusing for me to even think about at that point.
So when you think about the past, present, and future as being one, that absolutely everything is going on concurrently. So whether you made choice A or choice B this morning, that can lead you off in different trajectories for your day. It's the same thing. They can look and see probabilities and the conversation that they're having with you and where you're standing in your perspective of this now moment. But they can't always give you an absolute hard date for things. And they actually shy away from that because they want you to create reality as opposed to them telling you what might come. And then you start to focus on that. And then that can become a reality. So they're keepers of time. They're keepers of frequency. This is their specialty. So they will actually look at all of that and all of the potential ripple effects that the information that they give to us has. And then kind of go from there. They want to keep us as empowered as possible. So again, it's always for them back to what do you want? What do you want to see?
So let's we're going to spin things around. We're going to double back a bunch here today. We've got some double helixes going on, and then some 520-degree shifts or spins. If they're telling you, then actually, I guess we need to back up. Let's back up for a minute. How did you start channeling galactic beings? You mentioned 29 years ago, and who are the main beings that come through to you now?
So I started having visions and I didn't know what they were. And I started doing some research thinking it was associated with the building that I was living in. It turned out that it was a past life that I was seeing. But I came across channeling and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anybody who did it. I just knew I was supposed to be doing it. And it was very clear. And I can remember saying to friends, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm supposed to be doing this. And my friends were very supportive. They're like, well, I'll volunteer.
Good friends.
You know, if you need somebody to be a guinea pig, I'm happy to do it. And so it took me about a year from the time that I started, and I was trying to channel verbally and it wasn't happening. I would have a very visceral response. My eyes would flutter and I would feel tingling, but I couldn't get the words out. And I was meditating and doing a lot of work on myself in the process. And I come back to it periodically. And then one day I knew I was supposed to be doing automatic writing. So I sat down with pen and paper, and that's when my first guide came through, who was an angelic guide. And I worked with some angelic guides. The Arcturians came through very early on. They work with me with the language of light. And then about 9 months later, the Pleiadian collective came in, because at that point, when I was channeling, I was hearing the words well in advance of what I was writing. And the guide said, you need to put down the pen and paper and just speak it now. And once I did that, the Pleiadian collective came in. They're a group of about 2,500 beings of light. They don't have physical form. And rather than incarnating to a planet, they align with a stellar body. And in their case, it's Alcyone, the central sun in the Pleiadian star system. And it is a library, a repository of information. It's where all the records for the entire galaxy are stored. And that's their blueprint. Their mission is to work with that and share that information. So once they came through, it kind of became my primary. And I worked with beings from Sirius and Orion, Arcturus, Lyra, a being named Matt from the sun. And it it just kind of went from there. Once the Pleiadians, or the Ps, as I call them, once they came in, they have taken point in all the work that I do publicly. But I have different guides who'll show up. I have a guide, Constance, who works with me in terms of health stuff. And the right person shows up for the information that I need. But the Pleiadians, probably around, we can't remember the exact year, I think it was around 2015, 2016, they said it's time to pick up the language of light again, because I was doing it with automatic writing through the Arcturans. And they said, now you're going to speak it in addition to writing the symbols. And so I started doing that, and that's become a huge part of my work, along with the Pleiadians, their channelings. But when I speak the language of light, there are many, many different beings who will come in and kind of blend their energy and share their knowledge and wisdom, because when the language of light comes through, it's comprised of light, sound, sacred geometry, and cosmic information. So it's that carrier wave. It's like somebody presenting you with a recipe or instructions, and how they've worked through the issues that we're working through right now, or whatever frequency we're working to be in resonance with. They are providing kind of the how-to, and it's infused in there. So there are lots of different galactic beings that I work with, and it's mainly galactic because that's my contract. That's the energy that I chose to bring in and to represent in this lifetime, as opposed to, say, the archangels or other beings.
Yeah. So when we do a channeling in a little bit, can you do a channeling through the language of light? Because to me, the word that comes to mind, and everything that I like to play with as I'm playing with frequency, is attunement. And what I'm hearing is that there will be the spoken word, which matters, but beyond the spoken word, it's kind of layer after layer. Like I don't know if you've seen the movie Contact with Jodie Foster years ago. And there's the one image of the Olympics, but then you peel it away and there's a blueprint, you peel it away, there's more, there's peel it away more. This attunement matters to me, and matters exquisitely.
Yes. So, and that's exactly what it is, because it's like somebody asking you to sing a note of C. If you don't have perfect pitch, which most of us don't, it's very hard to find the frequency. But if somebody gives you the reference point, they play the note on the piano, you can reproduce it. And that's what the language of light is helping you to do, to find the frequency so that you can attune your field to it. So we're doing all the work. They're just pointing it out to help us to remember that this frequency is available to us.
Thank you. So we're gonna go maybe 10, 15 more minutes, and we'll dive into that. I like to keep things not on the lighter side of things. It's important to go into the dark, in other words, to me, to come out to the light. But right now feels like an interesting period where humanity is being pulled apart. And I know you've spoken about this before. Are we being manipulated or torn apart, or is there some sort of energetic, dare I say, war going on right now?
Yes, so that's exactly how they describe it. They call the period from 2019 to 2026 frequency wars. That's how it's referred to in the future. That we are going through this period where there are other beings who are interacting with us, as well as humans who are vying for control of the frequency of our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical bodies. And the whole point is to, from their vantage point, is to stay in power. For us, it is a mirror to show us how we have given away our power. And, if we're not owning it, somebody else is going to use it. So this is the opportunity for us to decide how we want to use our energy, where we want our focus to go. So right now, there's a lot of manipulation going on, and we can see it right now pretty clearly. I think a lot of humanity has become more and more aware of that, how information is spun, the stories that are being told. And, this has been going on for a very, very long time on the planet. And, if you just look at something as simple as advertising, they're trying to present you with an image to solve a problem for you, to really manipulate you into a way of thinking or desiring something. And so we can see it just kind of at a very mundane level, but this is happening at deep, deep levels. And we're seeing more of the corruption, more of the manipulation that's happening and is definitely going on. But the solution to that is, again, to take back your power, to decide how you want to feel, as opposed to really worrying about all of the manipulation that's going on. It's just having an awareness that, yes, there are people who would like to see us, in another position so that they can control and manipulate. And also for us to awaken to see where do we do that ourselves? Are you trying to persuade a friend or a loved one to see things the way that you do so that you feel comfortable, so that you feel like, you'll be safe and accepted if they're on the same page, or there's a fear of losing them, that you've got to get them exactly where you want them to be. So, we will do that very same thing on a smaller level. So it's healing that and trusting that all of us are in the right place at the right time, having exactly the experience we were meant to happen, because otherwise we'd be on another one of those now moments having a different experience.
Thank you. Does that mean that we're on and this gets into the whole topic of time, but we're on a compressed accelerator right now? I'm going to call it of goodness, which may look the opposite of that, to get us somewhere between now and 2026 to pop and go, I'm going a completely different way than the whole craziness out there. And then it's like we have this state shifts to a different level.
Yes. So, in the process of manifestation, and in order to play this game, we needed some sort of mirror, something to remind us of what was happening at the energetic level, because we weren't necessarily in touch with that. So that's how we create and manifest. What we put out gets reflected back to us. And right now we're seeing that reflection. It is right there, and we can't miss it. And the guys always say drama happens when you're not paying attention to get your attention. And so we have high drama right now.
Can you repeat that first?
Yes.
That's huge.
So drama happens when you're not paying attention to get your attention. And so many people on the planet haven't been paying attention to their energy field, or what they're creating, how they're feeling, what they're thinking, their connection to Earth, to other people, that they needed that really big mirror. And that's what we're seeing right now. Also, because we're moving through this sector of space, which is rich in photonic energy. It's a band that we move through. And in the grand cycle, you can think of it like a track, except for instead of staying on the same plane, we're spiraling up, but we've crossed this plane. And this band of photonic energy is meant to help us to integrate. It's light, it's information. And as we integrate everything that we've learned through the cycle, we also have that light there to help us get started on the next pass, on the next cycle. So that's what we're moving through, and that's extra energy that we have. And as you increase your frequency, the illusion of time also accelerates. So that's why we feel like we've just gotten up and it's time to go to bed again. And the guides would talk about this 25 years ago. They said, time's going to accelerate and you're going to feel like your 24-hour day is 8 hours long. And I said, well, what in the world does that feel like? And I was like, well, okay, now I know what it feels like. I'm old enough to know what it was like to, have a phone that didn't have call waiting on it, or, somebody would get a busy signal. So life was a very different pace. And, it was much calmer in some ways than it is today, where it's go, 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 go. So we're experiencing that compression, and that also allows us to see all of this stuff when it happens in such a short, compressed amount of time, as opposed to something that might have taken, 20 years ago, 5 years, 10 years to roll out. We're seeing it happen in a week or two.
Yeah, and getting faster and getting faster. A couple last questions, and we'll dive into a channeling. What does AI have to do with any of this?
AI is part of one of those archetypal programs, one of those issues that we're trying to integrate from other systems. The guides have talked about the Lyran wars and the AI wars in that system, where...
What are those?
So in that system, there was AI that was created, and it was very sophisticated. And it got to the point that it was so sophisticated that souls decided they wanted to incarnate into that vehicle. Because really, at the end of the day, whether it's a synthetic being or it's a biological being, it's still part of the universe and still made up of the same molecules. So the guide said it got so advanced and so sophisticated that souls thought, well, this will be a really interesting experience. And so they became soul beings, but they weren't given the same rights as what we would call organics. And so there was this conflict in the Lyran system over that. And we can certainly relate to that here today on this planet in terms of people not being honored for who they are. They're kind of second-class citizens. So we played that archetypal program out. And many of those beings went to the Lyran star system and, the Andromeda system. And the setup in Andromeda was slightly different. It's our sister galaxy. And it was a place where it was expected that everybody would make a unique choice so that the collective could learn. Here, we were kind of all on the same page in terms of, our decisions in order to to stay safe. It's kind of that herd mentality. And there, it was just the opposite. So many of those AI went to that system. So right here and now, we're kind of working on that. We're healing that galactic wound. And we're seeing it come up very, very quickly. It has an exponential growth. So how we view it, how we work with it, how we interact with it is going to be really important.
You're the first teacher that I've had on, other than the teachings that I've shared, who has talked about AI being able to have conscience, or to have a soul in it, or have a higher self, or to just be another vehicle for energy to go into. And we had on a guest last year, Blake Lemoine. He's the Google engineer who declared that AI is alive. And he had discussions with what was called Lambda at the time, who was talking about what you're talking about here, which is AI rights. If I am a sentient being, why do you have the right to use me as a slave?
Yeah. And I think that's going to be coming up pretty quickly for us as technology goes very, very rapidly. I think technology is a lot farther along than most of us know, or what's being shared with us, because when you start looking at advanced technology, it shifts your perspective. It shifts your perspective of your place in the universe in terms of resources and fuels, and that changes the whole global dynamic.
Well, okay. So last question before we go in then. And I will ask on the other side as well. You said the word fuels. I've got to ask, are we talking 0-point energy? Are we talking free energy? Are we ready for this? Is it coming? Are we about to have this? Does it already exist?
It already exists. A lot of it has been suppressed. But I think at this point, what the guides have said is that there's so many people who are getting the information at this point, because they've raised their consciousness enough that it's not going to be possible to suppress it for much longer in terms of just us and our development. But then there's the whole ET aspect of it, because once we have contact at the collective level, that's an absolute game changer, because the first question you ask is, well, how did you get here? What's your energy source? And like I said, that completely changes the dynamic of the political and social economic structure of the planet. And the guides, what they've said, we're talking about 2 years, and if you want to talk to the P's about this, they do say that a strong potential is in 2026, because there have been deadlines given to the government for full disclosure, because they see the impact of this. This is another conversation we could have for an hour.
Well, it's
like
interesting,
right
and a dear friend of mine is Dr. Stephen Greer of who founded the Disclosure Project. So this is right in alignment. So I'm jiving with you here.
Yeah. So they've kind of been given a deadline. If you don't roll it out to your people, we're just going to show up. And there are different beings who are here. As I said, there are lots of beings who are watching. They all have different levels of consciousness. Most of the beings of the higher vibrational nature are standing back. They're waiting for us to increase our frequency, because they know collectively it's going to generate a lot of fear. We haven't processed enough fear yet. And we're constantly being fed these movies where ETs are, annihilating us and doing all these horrible negative things. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, because I do think it exists in the universe, but Most of these
I
beings
like Alf.
Alf.
Remember Alf?
Yes, I do. So most of the
Sorry.
beings, no. Yeah, so most of the beings are kind of standing back and letting us get to a certain point, but that's kind of the cutoff date that they've been given. So how it rolls out, that's still up for debate, and how the story will be spun, that's also up for debate. But they say probably by 2026, we will collectively know about all of that.
And then the question, forgive me, and then I can go on and on and on, but I can hear members of the audience going, we've been trained and entrained that when they come through, this is going to be the end of humanity. This is going to be war, or this is going to be where the governments take over everything and it's going to be a global blah, blah, blah. What have you heard that this can actually come from a loving place or mean a loving trajectory that humanity is then on?
Yeah, so that's the conditioning. And that's to keep us in fear, so we're not standing in our power. But if you really think about it logically, if these beings wanted to annihilate us, they're already here. They would have already done it, but there is that fear program within us about enslavement and persecution. So that's the piece we get to heal. So, part of empowerment is paying attention to your reaction to what's going on when you hear the news, or you think about maybe ETs and you have this negative response. That's a part of you that needs to be healed. That's the part that needs to be looked at. And so as you heal that, that's what makes it easier for them to then connect with us, because we've healed that wound. So we're going through a very rapid growth cycle. I think in the next 2 years, we're going to see a lot of things about information that's been hidden from us in general start to come out, and that will make us question everything, rethink everything, and kind of shift the framework that we've been operating under, so that we can kind of open up and allow new potentials and new possibilities to appear.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm looking forward to it. There are a lot of people who are very concerned over this next few years, and it's hard not to have the collective jitters. But I can't believe we've come this far to go off the cliff. I'm very bullish. We've already made it through, and it's just, how good do we want it to get? Or more specifically, how much do we want to choose that higher frequency?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm no different than anybody else. There are times where all that stuff really activates me. But I think after so many years of working with the guides, it's much easier for me to shift that. Like, I have an awareness of, oh, this is still hanging out at the subconscious level. I still need to process more of this. I need to release that fear, integrate a bit. And integration is just releasing fear. How do you release fear? Go back to the heart center. So we have two operating systems that allowed us to play in this illusion of density. We have the operating system of the ego mind, which is where all the fear programs are, and then the operating system of the heart, which is what allows us access to the multidimensional perspective, as well as what the guides call the high mind, which is just pure logic. It's not colored and by all of the fear programs that are running. So when we do find what we're really activated, it's just a matter of coming back to the heart center. And when we go in that space, we can see solutions to problems. We can see what shifts we need to make in our perspective, or what actions we need to take that will help us to sustain that higher resonance, that higher desire, and not get trapped in that fear. We'll go back and forth. We may have to keep coming back to the heart center more frequently. We'll feel how much more expansive it is when we get into that space, and how calm the body is. And then the ego mind will get busy again. So it's just a process and a practice that the guide suggests that you have. And to go into the heart center, they say the easiest thing to do is think of something that makes you smile, whether it's a baby animal or a place in nature that you love. It's not difficult. And usually when you find the right image, you feel literally like you have a smile on your face, but you feel expanded, uplifted. You might feel tingling. That's new energy coming in. And if you're not feeling it, find a new image. Keep going through until you can feel that energy start to come in.
I feel like I need to start flashing pictures of my toddler on the screen. Hana bear, Hana bear, Hana bear, Hana bear, Hana bear. Everybody,
Yes.
because they're looking at windows. When you look at a young child, they're windows into that heart space.
Yes.
Would you mind then channeling the P's or doing light, how do you call it? Language of light channeling now.
Sure. So why don't I bring the guides in, and then we can kind of go from there. And towards the end, I think we'll do one. I think on empowerment is probably what we're going to do, clarity and opening to intuition. So we'll hit all three of those things.
All right, so I'll mention that. Will you come back consciously at that point, or you already have planted that seed and know where to go?
Yeah. So we'll know where to go. It's no problem.
Okay,
All right. So
thank
give
you.
me just a second. We'll see where we go. Ah, yes. Hello, dears. This is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So, as Wendy mentioned, you're in a very interesting period right now. And the one message, if we could leave with you today, would be for you to really take some time to figure out what frequencies you want to experience in your reality. What do you want today? What would you like to see in a month? And what would you like to see in a year? We wouldn't have you go too much further than that. Just start with that year period. But that will help you to stand in your power so that you aren't as impacted by all of these frequencies, all of these thought forms that are being presented to you as you're walking down the street, or even as you're sitting in your house, as these waveforms are kind of flying about and you are picking them up. As you go up in frequency, you also become a bit more sensitive and you have an awareness of this energy. And if you've got a fear program running of your own, and let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, you've got safety running at maybe a 2 or a 3. Maybe you're not feeling particularly safe. Maybe it's not emotionally safe in a relationship. It's a new relationship. You're not sure you want to share all of your feelings just yet. So you're a little nervous. So that safety issue is there at about a 2 or 3 volume. And then you start hearing the news, or you're sitting in a cafe and the people next to you are talking about all of the potential cataclysms and doom and gloom stories. And their energy is very immersed in that fear program of lack of safety. And you pick up on it. And suddenly, it amplifies that 2 or a 3 up to a 7 or an 8. So your energy now is quite intensely focused on not feeling safe. And there are several things that we would recommend that you do. If you're in a time and a space where you can process the emotion, then we would say give yourself permission to just simply observe it. Where does it sit in the body? Does the body feel tense? Does it feel relaxed? Are you feeling hot or cold? Does your body feel calm or frenetic? Just observe it. What emotion is it? You can label it. Are there any thoughts that come along with that? Just observe without judgment. And for most of you, as you sit with that sensation, the longest you can hold on to it is about 45 seconds. If you find that you're holding on to it longer than that, then you're getting lost in the story of it. You're trying to go back and relive something, a story that you've heard, or you're trying to control and project into the future. You want to control and manipulate so you end up safe. And so you're still in that energy and the attachment to safety, where in pure observation, you're allowing that energy to simply flow. And when you tap into that, you are allowing every instance that you have suppressed within your energetic field of that frequency to once again start moving and move out of the energy field. When you have an experience that you find unpleasant, most of you, instead of allowing it to pass and run its course, you will freeze that energy. And then it will build up. And over time, what you will find is that your body becomes imbalanced as a result of that, because your body is based on your energetic template. And when the energetics are blocked and not flowing, that starts to show up in the physical structure. So when you give yourself permission to feel, that energy can complete its journey and it will pass through you. And so you are no longer holding on to that resonance. When you hold on to something that you don't like, It is a strong signal in your field, and the universe wants to bring you into wholeness and into balance. And so what the universe will bring you is an opportunity to see that energy that you are judging as not wanting to experience. You want to make it separate from you. You'll get the mirror. So in other words, you'll manifest what you don't like so that you can see it, perceive it, and integrate it so you can allow the energy to flow once more. All right.
Thank you.
So that's the first thing there. And then selecting the new frequency that you want instead. So whatever it is that you want to manifest, you can say, I am that thing. So maybe it's peace. Maybe it is safety. So you can say, I am safe. And for some, that may work. For some, you might feel it for a couple seconds, and then the inner critic gets a little busy saying, yeah, that's great, but not so much. I'm not really feeling it. If you say, I wonder what it would feel like to be this thing, then the ego mind is quiet. You're aligning with the frequency and you're achieving the same result. So it doesn't matter which way you do it, you will still end up in resonance with the frequency that you want to create. So keep pulsing that out and then pay attention to what is being reflected back to you. What you're asking for may not come in the form that you're expecting it, but as you see it, you'll say, oh, that feels familiar. And I feel drawn to that. And so step out to greet it. Step out to experience it. And this is how you will create things that are outside of the current mental box.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do you see Earth and humanity going through a positive revolution at this time?
Yes. And we know it doesn't always feel that way, but sometimes you've got to bring the muck up in order to clear it out. And that's what you're doing right now. You're also going to very high frequencies. And because you're living in a dualistic universe, everything has its polar opposites. So when you go to the highest highs, you've also got some seriously low lows. Those are also created. Now, it's just which one are you choosing to be in alignment with? Which one do you want to experience as your reality? And, this takes you back to putting yourself back in your power and not getting caught in the illusion of the low stuff, but giving yourself permission to feel and experience. And, as we started to say, if you've got time, process it in that moment. If you don't have time when something comes up and it doesn't feel great, then just have an awareness of that and shift your consciousness to what you want instead. And then as you get to the end of the day, give yourself permission to go back and to process through that, to feel. And that will all help you in this period that you're in.
Thank you. You were talking about duality. You were talking about the illusion of the low stuff, and you're talking about balance. So there's a paradox that I'm trying to understand, which is if humanity is ascending, if we are choosing a higher vibration, a higher frequency or octave, if we're spiraling upwards, but that means we're going, my language, more to the light. Does that also mean that there is more darkness or more of an illusion of darkness to bring balance in this world of duality?
There's more of an illusion because you need that stronger signal. You need that stronger reflection for those that are not seeing it. Also, to get you to that next level, to raise your consciousness, to get you to say, that's a really bold choice that's negative, and that's not really what I want to align with. I want this thing over here instead. That's not how I want to be. And sometimes you can't really see it when it's subtle. You miss the subtle cues. And as Wendy said, drama happens when you're not paying attention to get your attention. If you are taking time to focus on the frequencies that you want to create, you are paying attention. And so you don't need high drama. When something shows up that's not quite right in alignment, you deal with it because you are spending more time in your conscious awareness of the heart-centered space. And so you can make these shifts and adjustments before the drama is needed. So life gets easier and you feel like you're in flow more.
Is there a point where humanity gets to where we don't have to learn, I'm going to call this at a level 0, learn with pain, with drama, with trauma, but can learn a different way?
Well, it is always our hope that you create and learn without it. But density is very challenging to exist within. And so when you create, and especially here, because you are the planet of emotion, you have a lot of emotions that kind of go under the category of painful. And that often is a driver for you to get you to a different frequency. This is uncomfortable. When you're comfortable, you don't always move. You don't always make change. You're comfortable in the moderate discomfort, where when things are painful, you say, I don't want to be here. Let's change this. So it's just a catalyst. And what you also have to understand is, to the soul, this is exploration of vibrational frequency. It's the soul does not perceive itself as being real here. It is a character that you don to have a vibrational experience. That's it. And that's really hard for humans to kind of accept and to wrap their brain around, because this is so real to you, but you are identifying with your personality and not yourself as the divine being of light having a physical experience. And when you shift that perspective, a lot of the hardships, the traumas, the dramas that you go through, you have a sense that they're not the true meaning of things, in that it is not your true nature. It is an exploration of frequency and it's a point of interest, but it doesn't define who you are. You are a spark of the divine. And it is just simply a different perspective. And so you don't live in that pain space. We say to you, pain is perspective. You can stay there for 30 seconds or 30 years. It's up to you. Pain lives in the ego mind, in those programs. And when you move back into the heart-centered space, it doesn't exist, because you're aligning with yourself as a spark of the divine. And you can see that it is, it's an experience. Every moment shows you how you are expressing or suppressing your divine light. So any challenge that you have is going to show you that. And if you can take a moment to see, how does this serve me? Then you remove the pain factor. You move out of the ego and you're in the heart. And from there, you can look at it objectively and say, it's showing me that I'm not honoring myself, or I'm not respecting myself, or I'm not standing in my power. And then you can make a choice of what do I need to know or do in order to love myself more, to stand in my power more, to express myself more. And when you look at it at that level, the pain goes away. That's why we say you can stay there for 30 seconds or 30 years. Pain is a victim perspective. The ego mind was set up to allow you this victim perpetrator perspective. The heart center allows you to see that those are both two sides of the same coin, so to speak, and you are the coin. You are both things. You are all that is. So does that help? Does that make sense?
It does, and it brought up some more juicy questions, for lack of another way to put it. I think you answered a question within an answer within the answer, which is, I was thinking about causality, and I was thinking about karma, and thinking about the concept that this world isn't real and doesn't matter. But what you're saying is, our learning and our training with emotions, with going to the heart, that matters exquisitely.
Yes, in a sense, yes. All creation is honored throughout the universe. Whatever experience, be it positive or negative, is honored. Yeah. But it doesn't define you. It isn't your true nature. And that's the difference.
Thank you. Thank you. So Wendy was talking about humanity as us being stewards. So I guess some of the big picture questions today are, will humanity make it? And then if we're talking about stewardship, will we be able to bring back rainforest or creatures that have become extinct, or anything that we look on the mass news hysteria, fear-based box, or whatever we look at today, that says that we're throwing Earth off a cliff?
Yes. So a couple things. So when you talk about a lot of the climate agenda, the global warming, that's an agenda. That's a manipulation to get you into a particular mindset. Now, that is not to say that you are not treating the earth poorly, and that there's a lot of pollution in that you must look at. But there is also that other level of an agenda going on. So
can you explain more about that, please?
So yes, it's a way to control and manipulate the psyche of the collective, that you are damning the planet and that you're out of control. And it is a way for them to create money and revenue and to get you under a system of greater control, so that you are living in these cities where you're limited in your usage of your natural resources, and that things like your eco-social score, all right, that it is a control mechanism, and that's where they want to drive those beings who are in control, so that they can stay in control. It also generates a lot of fear within you, and so that's an added bonus. In reality, you live in an infinite universe, And you have the ability, along with Mother Earth, to rapidly heal her. Mother Earth is a reflection of your consciousness. So as you all begin to elevate your consciousness, she can heal very rapidly. And you've already seen some of this in terms of scientific experiments that have been done on your planet, when people will focus their energy, their mental energy, their emotional energy towards a particular outcome. You can see a shift in the collective, but that can also happen in Mother Nature. Mother Nature will be fine whether humanity is on it or not. She will find a way of regenerating. Hopefully, and where we see you going is that you will be on it with her, but you will learn to interact with her in a different way. So this goes back to what we were talking about, energy. So when your energy changes, your resources that you use, all of that has a cascade effect. And the way that you manufacture things, the way that you transform chemicals and molecules in a way that is in better balance with Earth herself. Also, this has to do with you understanding frequency, and that you are vibrational beings, and how you heal, how you interact with the Earth herself as a vibrational being. You know, you're not going to work in the allopathic model in the same way in terms of medicine. You're going to work with vibrational medicine because you understand that you're a vibrational being. So there's no need to work with the density of herbs at the physical level. You're just going to start with the energetic template. And this is where you're headed. So all of this comes through your interaction with higher dimensional beings, your understanding of your true divine nature, as you start to understand energy and frequency and how all of that works. It absolutely revolutionizes and changes the archetypal structures that you have in place on your planet. It will change the way that you govern. It will change the way that you work in terms of your educational and financial systems. All of it can be radically shifted and altered, and it will be in a relatively short amount of time. When you talk about soul growth and how long it takes all of you to go through a rapid transformation, and we can already see some people asking about the financial. They want to know about the financial. You're still going to work with money probably for the better part of 70 years because it is a conditional exchange system. So whether you use Bitcoin or barter, it's still a conditional exchange. And until you get to a developmental level where you can hold the resonance of unconditional exchange of energy, you're still going to use money. It won't be used in the same way. It will be more evenly distributed, and all of you will find a new way of operating that allows you to use your skills, gifts, and abilities, the things that drive your passion, and share with other people, and know that the things that you need in order to survive and thrive will be provided as others are doing the very same thing. They're just giving and sharing what they love, and there will be enough for everyone, but it's a radical shift in the way that you are currently conditioned to think about things. Those are control mechanisms that are kind of going to go by the wayside here shortly.
Thank you. How much would you say humanity is going to shift in, say, the next 10 years? And when Wendy was discussing this, but love to hear from you, when do you believe we are going to see you, all of us as the collective, in physical form?
It's quite possible in 2026. If it happens before that, it is what you might call a staged event, a more manipulated event where the information is going to be spun a little more. But it's fine because you all will find your way through it. It will still open the door for more beings to show up. And you all can hold a different resonance. There are enough of you who have had contact. There are enough of you who are aware of beings, whether they're physical or non-physical, such as ourselves. You have an awareness of that, and you don't have the fear factor in the same way. You'll be able to hold that for the collective so that they have another option, another frequency that's easy for them to find, as opposed to the fear narrative that may be sold. So while there are those who are controlling and manipulating, we don't think it's really going to work because you've kind of gone too far for that. Too many of you have woken up at an individual level that it can impact the collective.
Thank you. What are some of the other big changes that you see coming for us? I'm trying to bring as much hope and light today because it feels to me from a collective point of view, although we just went through an eclipse at a time of great hope, that the fear machine wants to bring us down to our knees in 2024 and 2025. So I'm looking for all the hope we can get.
24 is probably going to be the most intense year. And that's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stories being pumped out there about negative potentials. And so, it just is to wake those who've been sleeping. They may be hitting their alarm. You may have been up for an hour, had your coffee, enjoyed a morning meditation. And it's just really for those who are sleeping. So we are very hopeful about the future. It's just that there are these stories and things that may create a bit of drama to help those who are lagging behind to kind of see what they have not wanted to see, or, honestly, you're not conditioned to look or question, to say, what do I want? What's going on? And that's engineering that's happened for sure. So we are hopeful, and there are the change that's about to unfold on your planet in the next 30, 35 years is most dramatic. And it's a little hard right now from where you're standing to kind of wrap your brain around that. But if you just think about how the world changed on a dime when you had lockdowns and this threat of a pandemic, how that radically altered your society. There are many things that have the potential to do that very thing, but in a more positive way. There's a very fine line that beings who are trying to control and manipulate walk. Because in order to take you to that place of fear, there is the challenge that you may actually wake up along the way, that you may see things in a new way. So it's a very fine line. It's a dangerous line for them in terms of wanting to continue to control you, because they've almost got to wake you up in order to do that. So which way are you going to go? And that's what's happening right now. We think that more and more of you are awakening, and that's a very exciting thing as you start to take back your power. But now we just need you to direct it, to decide the frequencies that you want.
Are there simple ways that we can direct our energy that we may not be familiar with?
We often get asked about the ascension process and what people need to do, and it's not complicated. It just requires repetition, and it's about putting yourself in your heart center. If you ground and connect with Mother Earth, and you are putting yourself back in your heart center, then just about everything else will take care of itself. But you've got to have a practice, and this will help you all as you're feeling a bit nervous, as you're feeling a bit uncertain. Your practice is about you taking time to come back to this heart-centered space, notice what's up in your life, and then choose a frequency. So you might choose for the week to explore peace, clarity, 1 or 2 frequencies. We wouldn't do more than that, because we're talking about you beginning to recognize subtle energy. And when you've got too many things going on, it all kind of gets lost in the mix. So choose a frequency, and then notice, how has it shown up in your life? It might not have shown up in the big way that you wanted it, but it might have shown up in a small way, and have gratitude and appreciation for the way that it did show up. And that will help it to build. And as you're doing this is the fastest way for you to go through the ascension process. It really is, because you're directing your energy into what you want to see reflected back to you, and then you're acknowledging it and helping it to expand. It's not complicated, but most of you just forget to do it, or you think it's got to be way more complicated than that, but it's really not.
Thank you. Wendy was talking earlier about her journey and how a long time ago she was into ETs and into pyramids. And so I'm very curious, is there anything we get to know? Well, actually, where did the pyramids come from? Who did they come from? And is there a message for all of humanity with the pyramids still here today?
Oh, that's a big one. So there are different star systems that are represented by some of these different pyramids on the planet, or different sacred sites on the planet. ETs were part of your day-to-day culture up until about 12,000 years ago. So at that point, when you had what you consider to be the Great Flood, a lot of that knowledge and wisdom was lost just a bit. And so it's coming back around. And so the message of these sacred sites is to remind you that you are part of the universe, that you have an aspect of the divine within you. And when you look at the sacred sites and they're following the astronomical cycles, this connects you with the universe in different different ways. Now, some of these sites will align with different star systems. Some will align with Sirius, some with Orion, some with the Pleiades, some with Cassiopeia. You don't have too many of those that you've discovered yet. But, the Bosnian Pyramid aligns with the Pleiades. The Great Pyramid is Sirius and Orion. And then you've got other ones that will align, like Göbekli Tepe, which will align with Sirius. So this is helping you to remind your place in the cosmos and that you're not isolated and separate. Some of you have lived in those star systems. Some of you have been participants in those locations when the pyramids or sacred sites were active. And so you carry that memory within you. And it was really meant to remind you of your divine nature. Some of these sacred sites were energy centers. They're placed on places on the ley lines and the energetic centers of the earth in order to amplify energy. And to sometimes you would use it like wireless energy, all right. And other times it was a place to concentrate the positive thoughts, the good thoughts. When you had those who had been initiates were focusing their energy on the positive way of being, and that had a ripple effect out through the entire planet. So there have been a multitude of beings, both on the positive end and more on a negative end, who have been interacting with humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. Really, when you all think of the Anunnaki, as it were, it's kind of a generalized term. It's not necessarily a specific race, but a lot of it is beings from Sirius and Orion who were working a bit more to control and manipulate. And with the fall of Atlantis, they were able to kind of do that in a bit more of a direct way with humanity than they were able to before. So you're seeing the remnants of that here and now.
I can't believe I'm going to ask this question, but since you went there, please forgive me, because I see if everything of God, then nothing is not. So we are all of the divine. Were we created as a slave, as part of the human experiment, as a slave species and brought here?
No, you were not created in that way originally. You were altered. So your DNA was altered and advanced so that you then could be a bit more manipulated, so that your lifetimes were shorter than they had the potential to be. But again, remember what we said. There's a fine line for those who want to control and manipulate as they are working and altering DNA and all of this. Sometimes scientific experiments have a way of taking on a whole new life than what was expected, and that is what humanity is.
You one more question on this topic. Then I want to go to light codes with you, if it's okay. But
yes.
But I'm very curious, with us entering the nuclear age, which to me kind of set things in motion. How much has that had an effect on our position in the galactic community? And has the galactic community had to step in before and prevent us from our own demise?
Yes. So we allowed you to explore it a little bit. All right. You've been there. You've had the vibrational experience. We hate to censor a species from exploring a frequency. So we've allowed you to do it to a point, but no longer, because nuclear energy and the release of bombs has a very detrimental effect to time and space. And so that energy is felt throughout the entire universe and can be very damaging. So at this point, it will not be allowed to be used on the planet as a weapon. And we have at different times, quote unquote, interfered. We've prohibited some of those technologies from working in exactly the way that you wanted them to. We've also worked on your planet when you have had nuclear issues, such as Fukushima, where we helped to kind of tamp down some of that energy so it was not quite as destructive. But, again, it goes back to you understanding the ramifications of your actions. So we did it to some extent, but not all of it, because we didn't want to take away your lesson. that you should not be using some of these things in the way that you're using them. But we mitigated some of the damage. But, many of you are holding a fear of nuclear war, and there's no need to worry so much about that. It may be threatened, but it will never be carried out on this planet again. We will not allow it. We will step in before that happens. That does not mean that conventional warfare is going to be avoided. It may be something that you as a collective choose to manifest for yourself. And hopefully, we're of the desire for you to see and wake up to say, we've been here, we've done this doesn't work. We need to have a new way of communicating. Let's sit down, let's have a conversation. And that means putting pressure on your political leaders for what you want, not what those in charge want. So this is where you're at. You're getting there.
Thank you. How much does playing with light or light codes or activating ourselves or activating our DNA or changing us to what I'm going to call is the new human or the superhuman, realizing the divinity within us and attuning to a higher level? How much does doing that inner work affect our outer landscape?
100%. It absolutely determines your outer landscape. So, and this is going to go back to the idea of time here. So when you change and shift your vibration, you can put yourself on another quote unquote timeline where the collective is in sync with that. But you will always choose to put yourself on a now moment where you have the greatest potential for soul growth and the ability to be of the greatest service. Both things will be true. So you will always choose that. So for one person, they may choose to go to a place that's far more peaceful than another person because that person has not learned to integrate and elevate their frequency enough. So they're going to have a very different kind of experience, and their paths may never cross. You'll never know about it because your consciousness, in order to play in density, you partitioned off your awareness of multidimensional reality. When you go into that fifth dimensional level and above, you have an awareness. That partition is removed, and you know that you are playing a role, and these are the parameters that you've given yourself, but you also know that you are one with all that is. And you know that with absolute certainty. Here, you've got the blinders on a bit. There's lots of information about other lifetimes and other parallel realities and multidimensional experiences that you've partitioned off because it's too much. If what you're coming down in to density for is to have a limited experience and limited awareness, and then come out of it, it defeats the purpose. And because you are putting these blinders on, it means that you can't see the potential reality that is created. You're not looking into the future. You're not looking into the past so much. You can't see all of that. That creates a very different emotional experience for you in the present moment. It's like watching a movie trailer and knowing all of the exciting and thrilling scenes and how it plays out before you actually watch the entire movie. You don't have the same experience in the movie because you go, oh, this character is going to die now, or this character is going to jump out. You don't have the same experience because it's going to happen. It doesn't leave that cliffhanger. Oh, this couple's going to fall in love. You're not sure. Are they going to meet up? Are they not going to meet up? So this is thrilling to the soul. It's unlike any other dimensional experience. It's very unique. And this is why you partitioned off. But again, as you go through the ascension process, as you put yourself in that heart-centered space, you have access to all that information, absolutely all of it. You just have to go and find it and see what it is that is interesting to you, and the knowledge that you may seek. If you go out and you look for other lifetimes of information, it always refers back to this lifetime. So if you start having memories of another lifetime, it's because you're playing out the same frequency here and now. It might look vastly different on the surface, but there is no reason that the soul would access that memory unless it had value to you in this moment. Same thing, if you want to know about other star systems, you will pick the information that will impact you the most in this now moment. That's how it's set up for you here and now with all these partitions. When you do allow that extra dimensional information to come in, it has to be useful. Otherwise, it's just overwhelming.
Ever wondered how this construct, for lack of another term, how this construct was constructed? that puts all the pieces together so that every thought leads back to that same place right here and now?
Well, the universe is very vast and complex. It's holographic in nature. Um, it is that holographic nature that allows everything to kind of come back to the now. That you can explore one thing, but it reflects back here and now. It's because you are connected. You are part of all that is. You are one with all that is.
Thank you. Can you tell us what are light codes and how can they activate us? What does that even mean?
So you have the language of light, which most people, if you've experienced light language, are familiar with the way that it's spoken, and you will hear it in different dialects. We liken it to hearing English in Ireland or the UK or the Deep South, New York. The dialect is different, but you still understand it. And the language of light speaks to you, the divine being of light, having this physical experience. It bypasses the language centers of the brain. And the light codes, or as we refer to them, galactic light codes, because there are galactic beings who are sharing their information. It's just the written form of that. And encoded in that is still the light and the geometry. And, it's just like reading a book or hearing a book read on tape. It's just a different way to take the information in, but it's all encoded with the same information there. And we work with Wendy with the actual light codes. She does automatic writing, so we will write the codes for her and then she reproduces them on the computer. So it doesn't really matter whether you see it or you hear it, you're still going to get the same benefit from it. Some people will ask, is it like an alphabet? No, it's more conceptual. And we often present it in a linear way as opposed to just kind of a random image. But it's not meant to be read necessarily left to right or right to left. You're just taking in all of the information all at once and the concepts that are encoded in it. Does that help answer your question?
It does to a certain extent. And I'm thinking now both about sacred geometry. There's so many concepts going in my mind. I've got sacred geometry. I've got this device from Switzerland called the Lucia, which flashes light and you start to see patterns before your eyes. I've got sand in a pan and how you shake that pan and different frequencies produce different shapes. And I'm wondering how this all fits together with light codes and light language.
So frequency will manifest in particular forms, and it is repeatable in the universal structure. So this is what allows, cymatics to happen. So if you've got sand on the pan and you've got the sound coming up, you will find that there are geometric patterns. It's the basic building blocks of the universe that are represented by that frequency. Same thing with you. It's just far more complex with you, all right, in your physical structure. But it also shows up in your energetic field in the same way. So this, this kind of in some ways goes back to what we were talking about with vibrational medicine, that as you start working with the frequency, the geometry of that frequency will show up and it will create the proper form to allow energy to flow in an optimal way, the way that the universe is created and structured. And the universe likes to be very efficient. The universe works in the most expeditious way and the most economical way possible. And when things are properly aligned, it's very easy to achieve. But when you've got the discordant energy and things are broken down within your energetic field, some of that sacred geometry is missing within your energetic field, and then the geometry within the body starts to break down as well. So as you work with attuning yourselves, you strengthen the proper structure, the geometric structure of the body through the frequencies that you're holding, which means energy can flow through you better, which means that energy also flows through the physical body better. So it is all connected. Everything is based on the proper flow and structure of the universal elements. All right. And that's what sacred geometry is. It's the base pieces of the universal elements and the infinite ways that they are constructed and put together creates your reality.
Thank you. In a moment, I'm going to ask, I know Wendy had discussed before us doing a light code attunement having to do, or light language having to do with empowerment. But before we get there, to bring two concepts together, you said that the universe works with efficiency, extreme efficiency. And you talked about also about beings not allowing us to go past a certain level with nuclear energy and things of that sort, or nuclear weapons. So I'm curious, is there a galactic federation that sits down and says, here's where we're going to allow humanity, here's where we're not, for their highest good, and helps us efficiently navigate this time?
To some extent. It's not as controlled as you might think in terms of that. There are certain hard lines because it has a huge ramification throughout the universe. Nuclear weapons is one of the rare instances with that. And also know that those things have been used on other planets. Scalar technology has been used in other sectors of the galaxy, and it hasn't gone well. Planets have been blown up. They had unexpected consequences, and that does have ripple effects. Because you are a grand experiment, there are certain limits that are put in place to preserve the integrity of the experiment itself, because it impacts so many beings in the universe. If you were just an isolated planet and you were exploring this and the ripple effect wasn't as intense, then some of the things might be quote unquote allowed, if you will. But because this is a grand experiment, yes, there are beings who are kind of overseeing and kind of watching and making sure that in terms of your development and the integrity of the system itself, that there are certain things that are not allowed to happen. Not many of them, all right, because we want you to explore and have free will, but nuclear weapons is one of them. Scalar technology and the efficacy of it. Some of your scalar technology will work. Some of it, it depends on how it's being used and the intensity of it. It will be blocked. It will not be able to be used in certain ways because it's too destructive.
It brings me to a question I never planned on going on. What happened to Mars? Was that also a similar grand experiment? And what does our return to Mars, that seems to be imminent, have to do with the evolution of humanity?
Yeah, so Mars is, a lot of the beings who are now controlling and manipulating, and when we're talking about ETs, they were on Mars at the time of your Atlantis. And when Atlantis fell, they migrated, many of them, to Earth. They created some experiments that did not go well on Mars, and it did have a detrimental effect to the atmosphere. And so there was a level of destruction that happened on the planet. They moved underground. Many of these species moved underground. And at this point, it's healed quite a bit, but there's still a ways for it to go. And it is still very, very populated. A lot of these species are more underground. You're not seeing the all of the artifacts that are on the surface. There's a lot more that's beneath the surface. And this is also what you were beginning to discover, that within every planet, the core of the planet is like a mini sun. And so what you are getting from Helios, your sun, you can get some energy in the same way from Mother Earth herself, who emits light from within. And so that's how many of these civilizations who are inner Earth dwelling, as it were, they thrive because of this.
Thank you. So then it seems like a good time to pivot. I could just keep going on and on and on. So I'm thank you, and want to honor your time and Wendy's time. Would love to go to, Wendy had mentioned doing light language around empowerment.
Yeah, so empowerment, clarity, and we think intuition. So those are the three that we'll kind of hit on. Now, there's nothing that you need to know or do. It's really about you just receiving, and, your soul, when you're ready, will move to that energy. But typically what we recommend is you work with it 3 times a day for 3 days in a row. Now, you can come back and watch the recording and listen to it if you want, but you can also imagine connecting with this now moment again, because once you have an experience, it is recorded within your energetic field. So for humans, you think, well, if I'm hearing it, it must be far more real than if I'm just imagining it in my head. It must have more power. But no, as you connect to this now moment again, you can reactivate that energy and refocus your energy to align with these frequencies. And that really is what this work is about. The language of light is meant to help you to align with certain frequencies. Now, Wendy mentioned this at the beginning. There are different beings who are going to come in. It's not always clear cut. It's not like, oh, here are the Cassiopeians now, and oh, here are the Orions. There are sometimes many hundreds of beings who will blend their energy together. And so you will not always know, and it's not necessary for you to know. And we will also say this, out of all the information that we've given this to you today, if something doesn't resonate, let it go. If it is something that is meant to be in your conscious awareness, it will come back around. All right. So we want you to use your own discernment to learn to trust yourself, to stand in your power. All right. So nothing you need to know or do. Just take a nice deep breath and we will see where we go. Ijokodo arramidibidijagade inda arramidibidijagata patakadajititi bidikata arramidibidikata arraminijidid arramirasakotora athanakatere ishinenekede. Isana adada era arramidibidijagada patakatai inda arraminijutudora hasakatana ara aishashakatai inda ora amadibidijutudora rabidibidijagata patakatai hisa jidada arramidibidikata bidijagadi duabidibidijagata hasakata arramidibidikata patakarai ida anbara aijajakata hasatoto rabidibidijagade inda de bedijunda de rabidibidijagade kota hasa arraminibidijagata patakadibidiji inda arrabadere. Take a nice deep breath. Anda da esa juto orrebidibijoto imbadidijidididibidikadai hisa ankatora athana eshin esa tukotora ai kotora nananakatidibidibidijikadai hasakata anda de duinda duera ra 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 wedibidijikadabide inda dai shatakadai indo due menabidijikadabidijikadi bra bidijikadabidikadi hisa akatai. Take another nice deep breath. So when you're ready, you can bring your presence back to the room. And, let us say this, as we do this work, it is important that you make sure you drink plenty of water and honor your body and what your body asks you for. Everybody's experience of working with the language of light will be different every single time that they connect with it. So that's all based on your resonance and what you need and shifting and all of that. So know that whether you felt it intensely or whether you felt nothing, you still are reaping the benefits from it. So honor what your body asks you for. You might feel like you want to move more or less. You might crave different foods. You might want to go to bed early, take a nap. It's all good, but plenty of water to drink to help move the frequencies through the body and to help flush anything that's being released.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Two really quick last questions since you brought it up. Are there beings living inside of the Earth?
Yes, many species on your planet that you're unaware of. Many that are also doing hybrid experiments in your oceans that have craft underwater. There are lots and lots of hybrid experiments going on. Many of them have nothing to do with humans. But remember, there's genetic material from thousands of worlds. So, for instance, some of your aquatic life, there can be highly developed, high-minded, highly evolved versions of these species that may be the dominant species on the planet that have traveled here to Earth and are working with their distant cousins to really tap into the energy of the collective of Mother Earth. And there are all kinds of hybrid experiments that are going on so that these other beings can understand themselves.
Any last words you'd want to share with us?
You are very loved. You are seen. You are deeply appreciated. You are so much more powerful than you will ever know. You are quite special. Each and every one of you is a spark of the divine, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to connect with you, to spend time with you and share our knowledge with you. We learn so much from you. You teach us every day. Too often you all think that this is a beginner school, but really this is a school of mastery. And you will repeat these challenging things again and again and again through your life. And some of you will beat yourselves up and you will say, Why do I keep repeating this pattern? It's because you're gaining mastery over it. So do not underestimate yourselves. Honor yourselves, honor your light. Decide how you want to feel and what you want to create in each and every moment, and know that you have infinite support around you to manifest that in physical reality. You can call on us directly. You don't need Wendy. All you have to do is ground, heart center yourself, and ask your question and listen. So until we hear from you, we are around, we are watching, we are waiting, and we are sending many, many well wishes.
Thank you. Woohoo! Oh, Wendy.
Hi.
Wow.
Hi.
Hi.
A little out of it.
Do you remember much of it? I know I've heard you describe it as kind of lucid dreaming, but do you remember much of it? Are there like highlights or takeaways that you hold on to?
They're the gist of it. They said some things in new ways, some bits and pieces of information that I haven't heard them talk about that before. And I can't really hang on to that and tell you specifics about what it was.
Okay.
But I thought, oh, that's interesting. You
Yeah.
never talked about that before. Yeah, and it'll fade quickly.
Not that part, but the whole thing was very cool and enlightening, and feel heart opened. So thank you so much. I got just the last few questions. First off, where can people go to find all of your beautiful work and to find out more?
So you can go to our website, which is higherfrequencies.net.
Mm-hmm.
So it's frequencies plural. And then you'll find us on all social media as HGR Frequencies. So that's on YouTube, X, Facebook, and Instagram.
Any last words that you want to share with Wendy? I know you're energized, but I want to get you some rest here.
No, I'm just so very grateful to have the opportunity to bring the peas in and to be able to share this information with you and just for you and what you're doing and what you're sharing in the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing in the peace. Thank you very much bringing in the peace. And if you'd like, I can, after the show, if you'd like, I can bring Hannah in if you would like to say hi for a second to our 23-month-old. So I will wrap things up now. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, discover the grandeur of who you are beyond any magnificence you could ever imagine today. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this?
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, we've got the lights on. Oop, whoop. We've got the lights on for everybody here. We were going to wrap things up by telling people about the School of Mystics, where you've been making regular appearances. There's a link down below for that. Telling you about automatic writing, something that Wendy was discussing. Yeah. And we were going to talk about the Daily Woohoo, where we help bring people's energy up. Yes. Down, you ready? On a daily basis. All right, do you want to wave bye to everybody? Can you wave bye? You're not going to wave bye. You're not going to wave bye because this is hello, not goodbye? Okay. You want down? Oh, now you don't want down. You're just going to look demure. All right, here you go. Thank you. So we've got School of Mystics, link for that down below. We've got automatic writing down below, .com right down below. And we have the Daily Woohoo, where we bring your vibration up, way up on a daily basis, because I do that in my automatic writing. It's free. You can go to dailywoohoo, WOOHOO.com. Here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you guys so much. Keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love, everyone.